Welcome to Vivid Verses. If our words resonate with you, please subscribe, tap the like, and share your thoughts and your feelings in the comments. Now let's begin. You want the full autopsy of what happened with Chloe? Fine. Sit down. Pour yourself a drink, something stiff. I'm not drinking the brown stuff tonight. I need to keep the head clear for the Tokyo calls later, but you go ahead. I'm not going to give you the sob story version because there isn't one. This wasn't a tragedy. It was a correction of an accounting error, a liquidation of a depreciating asset. You know how I run my business. I assess risk, I look at the yield, and I look at the liability. If a contract stops being profitable, or if the counterparty breaches the terms of service, I don't cry about it. I don't ask why me. I void the contract. Relationships operate on the same mechanics. People like to dress it up in poetry and sentiment to hide the transactional nature of the exchange. But at the baseline, it's about agreement and conduct. I brought Chloe to the Archer mixer because, up until 48 hours ago, she fit the operational profile. I don't choose partners randomly. I vetted her. For 6 months, she was low volatility. She knows how to dress, elegant but not distracting. She can hold a conversation about surface-level politics without embarrassing me. She usually understands that when I'm talking to a client, she is there to facilitate the social lubricant, not to dominate the bandwidth. A partner at these events is a prop. That sounds harsh to civilians, but it's the reality of the ecosystem. She is there to signal stability. A man with a composed, beautiful, and loyal woman on his arm signals to other men that he has his house in order. It's social proof. It says, I can manage a relationship, so I can manage your portfolio. But the Archer event isn't a party. It's a workspace with an open bar. Every conversation is a negotiation, and every introduction is a potential leverage point. The room was filled with the kind of men who smell blood in the water if you blink too long. The stakes that night were specific. I needed to close the gap with the Sterling Group. David Sterling is old guard. He values FaceTime, loyalty, and firm handshakes. I had a window of maybe 45 minutes to corner him before he left for the Hamptons. If I locked in Sterling, our Q3 projections on the Pacific Logistics Corridor would jump 15%. We're talking about a 7-figure variance. Then there was Miller. You know Miller. He's been trying to undercut my margins on the shipping lanes for 2 years. He runs a volume business. Cheap, messy, unreliable. He's the kind of guy who thinks loud suits and louder laughter substitute for actual competence. He was there, obviously, circling the same targets I was. He's a scavenger. He picks up the scraps that the serious players drop. We walked in at 8 p.m. The room was already at capacity. High noise floor, aggressive lighting. I did a quick scan. I spotted Sterling near the terrace doors talking to his CFO, a guy named Marcus who acts as Sterling's gatekeeper. I turned to Chloe and gave her the standard brief. I need 20 minutes with Sterling, I told her. Grab a glass of wine, circulate, but keep the radius tight. Don't get stuck in a conversation with the wives. They're bored and they gossip. Stay visible, but don't hover. She nodded. She looked good. She was wearing that black dress I bought her in Milan. The one with the high neck, but the open back. Sophisticated. She kissed my cheek, a performative display of ownership, and headed toward the bar. I went to work. I intercepted the CFO first. It's the standard flank maneuver. Went over the numbers guy, and the CEO follows. We were discussing the volatility of fuel surcharges in the Pacific Corridor. It was a technical conversation, the kind that requires total focus. I was explaining our hedging strategy against rising crude oil prices. I have a habit of maintaining situational awareness, even when I'm engaged. It's a survival mechanism I picked up early in my career. Peripheral vision is key. About 10 minutes into the conversation, I saw Miller move. He wasn't looking at the bar. He was looking at Chloe. He saw an opening. That's fine. Business rivals talk to each other's partners. It's a common aggression tactic, dominance by proxy. You smile, you exchange pleasantries, you disengage. It's a standard social deflection test. If your partner respects the primary contract, us, she shuts it down politely and moves on. Chloe didn't disengage. She escalated. I saw the shift in her posture first. Usually, she stands with her weight on her back foot, guarded, polite, ready to pivot away. This time, she shifted her weight forward. She broke the neutral stance and adopted a stance of invitation. She leaned in. She reduced the distance between her and Miller to less than 18 inches. That's the intimate zone. Then came the audio. She laughed. It wasn't her real laugh. I know her real laugh. It's quiet, breathy. This was a broadcast. It was that loud, sharp, performative laugh designed to cut through the ambient noise of a crowded room. It was a signal flare. She wanted people to look. Specifically, she wanted me to look. I paused my sentence about fuel surcharges just long enough to take a sip of scotch and assess the data. She touched his arm. That's a tactile breach. In a room full of people watching social hierarchies, touching a direct competitor of your partner is a statement. It implies familiarity. It implies that the current barrier, me, isn't strictly enforced. Then came the check. This is the detail that sealed the decision. She looked over her shoulder directly at me. I was 20 feet away. She made eye contact, then immediately looked back at Miller, laughed again, and leaned closer, whispering something in his ear. 10 seconds later, she did it again. Another glance. She wasn't interested in Miller. Miller is an idiot with a spray tan and a lease Porsche. She was checking to see if I was watching. She was checking to see if I was getting angry. This is where most men lose the plot. They see that dynamic. Their woman entertaining another male, and they feel a biological spike of cortisol and testosterone. Possessiveness. They feel the urge to walk over, puff out their chest, shove the guy, and drag the woman away. They think that reaction signals strength. They think it shows passion. It doesn't. It signals weakness. It signals that you are reactive. I looked at her, and I didn't see a girlfriend. I saw a liability. I saw a security flaw in my personal life. She was using triangulation. It's a manipulation tactic as old as time. She creates a triangle, me, her, and the rival. She creates friction between the two men to inflate her own market value. She wanted me to storm over there. She wanted a confrontation. She wanted to prove to herself that she was valuable enough to cause a scene in a room full of seven-figure earners. She needs external validation because she lacks internal equity. I ran the logic instantly while the CFO was talking about union negotiations at the Port of Long Beach. 1. If she respects me, she shuts Miller down and walks away within 2 minutes. 2. If she respects herself, she doesn't use a cheap suit like Miller to get a dopamine hit. 3. If she is doing this, she is advertising that she is open for negotiation. I don't bid on assets I already own. If I have to bid again, the contract is void. The CFO asked me a question about our projected timelines for the Q4 rollout. I turned my back on Chloe and Miller. I answered the question in detail, citing specific metrics. I bought the CFO another round. I didn't look at her for the next 40 minutes. This was the hardest part, socially speaking. The instinct is to monitor the threat. But monitoring the threat validates the threat. By ignoring it, I rendered it irrelevant. I worked the room. I secured the follow-up meeting with Sterling. I shook hands with the VP of operations. I did my job. I acted as if she didn't exist, because in terms of my future planning, she no longer did. I was standing near the terrace doors, checking my email on my phone, when she finally came back. She was breathless. Her face was flushed. She had that high-energy vibration of someone who thinks they've just pulled off a heist. She was waiting for the explosion. She wanted the drama. She was primed for the makeup sex phase of the conflict cycle she had just manufactured. "Did you see me over there?" she asked. I didn't look up from my phone immediately. I finished reading a compliance report, hit delete, and slid the phone in my jacket pocket. Then I looked at her. "I saw you," I said. My voice was flat. No inflection. "Miller was being so aggressive," she said. She was panting slightly, feigning distress, but her eyes were bright. She was feeding on the adrenaline. "He was all over me. I didn't know what to do." She waited. The silence stretched out. She shifted on her heels. The reaction she ordered wasn't arriving. "Were you jealous?" she asked. The question hung there. It was the payoff she had spent an hour working for. It was the receipt for the transaction. I looked at her, and I didn't feel anger. I felt a profound sense of clarity. The relationship ended in that second. Not with a bang, but with the quiet click of a decision being finalized. It was like realizing a stock had hit its stop-loss limit. You don't get angry at the market. You just sell. "Why would I be jealous?" I asked. Her smile faltered. That wasn't the line in the script. She blinked. "What?" "He was hitting on me, Noah. Right in front of you. And you allowed it," I said. "You encouraged it. I watched you touch his arm. I watched you laugh at his jokes. You weren't a victim, Chloe. You were a participant. I was just being polite." Her voice went up an octave. She was trying to draw attention now, trying to force the scene she hadn't gotten yet. "Polite is a handshake and a dismissal," I said. "What you're doing was advertising." I took a sip of my drink. I needed her to understand the mechanics of what she had just broken. "If you prefer his company," I told her, "you are free to go home with him. I don't compete for my own partner, Chloe. You are either with me or you're on the market. Tonight, you look like you were on the market." She stepped back. The panic started to set in. The game wasn't working. The lever she pulled didn't dispense the reward. It dispensed a penalty. "I'm not. I didn't mean. You're supposed to care. Most guys would have come over there. Most guys would have told him to back off. I'm not most guys. And I don't care about things I have to fight for against men I don't respect. So you're saying you don't love me enough to fight for me? I'm saying that having to fight for you implies you are for sale. If you're for sale, I'm not buying. I don't want a woman who needs to be one every time we walk into a room. It's inefficient." She tried to pivot. She tried to get angry. She tried to blame Miller again. "He cornered me. You left me alone. You've been ignoring me all night to talk to that old man." "That old man is a $40 million contract," I said. "You know why we're here. You know the job. You decided that your need for attention was more important than the mission. Disrespect creates distance, Chloe. You wanted a reaction, and you got one. I've lost interest." I pulled my phone back out. I opened a Uber app. I punched in the address of the apartment building, not the unit. "What are you doing?" she asked. "I'm sending you home. You're coming with me, right? We need to talk about this." "No, we don't. I have more people to talk to here. This is a work event. You've made yourself a distraction, so I'm removing the distraction." I confirmed the ride. Premium black car. I wasn't going to be petty about the comfort, just the destination. "Your car is 3 minutes away. It's a Suburban. License plate 44 Bravo. Go wait out front." "Noah, stop. You're embarrassing me. People are looking." "You embarrassed yourself. You embarrassed us. Now I'm fixing it. Go home, Chloe." I didn't yell. I didn't point. I just stared her down until the social pressure became too much for her to handle. She realized I wasn't going to budge. She realized the audience she wanted wasn't the audience she was getting. She turned and walked toward the exit, looking back once near the coat check. I didn't meet her eyes. I was signaling the waiter for a refill. I stayed at the party for another hour and a half. This was a necessary tactical decision. If I left with her, people would assume there was a domestic issue. They would assume she had control over my schedule. If I left right after her, it looks like a fight. It looks like I'm chasing her. By staying, I control the narrative. I looked unbothered. I spoke to Miller 20 minutes later. This was a checkmate. I walked up to him at the bar. He tensed up. He expected the confrontation Chloe had promised him. He expected me to be the jealous boyfriend, giving him the chance to play the alpha. "Miller," I said. I held out my hand. He took it confused. "Noah, I heard you're having supply chain issues in the Pacific Northwest. The lumber tariffs killing your margin." He blinked. He was completely thrown off balance. Yeah, it's a headache. Sterling has a workaround for that," I said casually. "You should look into the rail loophole." I chatted with him for 3 minutes about logistics. I didn't mention Chloe. I didn't look at where she had been standing. I treated him like a colleague, not a threat. By the time I walked away, he looked unsettled. He realized he hadn't gotten under my skin. My lack of reaction devalued his entire evening. I demonstrated that nothing he did and nothing she did could impact my baseline. I maintained professional dominance in the room. I left at 12:45 a.m. I took my time getting a car. I answered a few emails in the back seat. I needed to be in the right headspace for the next phase, extraction. I got home at 1:15 a.m. The apartment was quiet. I walked in. She was in the bedroom. I could see the light under the door. She was presumably waiting for the fight to happen so we could have the catharsis. She probably had a speech rehearsed. She probably expected me to come in, yell, maybe break something, and then we'd cry and make up. That's the cycle she's used to from boys who don't know how to regulate their emotions. I didn't go to the bedroom. I went to the guest room, which doubles as my home office. I took off my suit. I hung it up properly, brushed the wool, checked the cuffs. I put on jeans and a plain t-shirt. Work clothes for a different kind of work. I went to the utility closet in the kitchen. I grabbed a roll of heavy-duty contractor bags, the 3 mil thick ones I use for construction debris. I grabbed 3 moving boxes I had flattened and stored behind the washing machine. I taped the bottoms of the boxes. Tape gun. Zip. Zip. The sound was loud in the quiet apartment. I walked into the bedroom. She was sitting up in bed, wearing one of my t-shirts. Her eyes were red. She had clearly been crying or staging the aftermath of crying. "Noah," she started. "You need to leave," I said. She froze. "What? This isn't working." "It hasn't been working for a while, but tonight was the proof of concept. You need to leave. Now. It's 1 a.m. I'll pay for the hotel. I don't care where you go, but you aren't staying here." I walked to the closet. I started pulling her clothes off the hangers. I didn't throw them. I wasn't destructive. I folded them once, efficiently, and placed them into the boxes. Blouses in one, pants in another. She scrambled out of bed. "What are you doing?" "Stop. I'm accelerating the process," I said. "We're done. I'm not going to spend the next 2 weeks arguing about it while you sleep on my couch. We are executing the separation now. You can't just kick me out." "I can't. You're not on the lease. You're not on the deed. You moved in 4 months ago. You have clothes and toiletries. I'm packing them now." I moved to the dresser. I opened the top drawer. Lingerie, socks. I swept them into the contractor bag. She grabbed my arm. Her nails dug in. I stopped. I looked at her hand on my arm. Then I looked at her face. "Don't touch me," I said. My voice was very quiet. "Pack your things, or I will pack them all in garbage bags. Those are your options. If you fight me, I call the police and have you removed for trespassing. I don't want to do that. It's messy, but I will." She saw the look on my face. It wasn't rage. It was the same look I have when I fire an employee who steals from the register. It was absolute finality. It was the look of a man who has already done the math and signed the paperwork in his head. She started crying, ugly, loud sobbing. "You're crazy. Over a little flirting? You're throwing away everything over one night? We were talking about going to Cabo in November. It wasn't flirting. It was a stress test. You failed. I failed for tolerating the potential of it. I'm correcting the error, and we aren't going to Cabo. I live here. Not anymore. You were a guest who overstayed her welcome." She realized I wasn't stopping. She grabbed a duffel bag from the closet floor and started throwing things into it, sobbing the whole time. She called me a sociopath. She called me cold. She said I was incapable of love. I didn't respond. I didn't defend myself. Debate is a form of intimacy. I wasn't intimate with her anymore. I went to the bathroom. I cleared the counter. Makeup, toothbrush, creams, hundreds of dollars of product. I put them in a plastic grocery bag and tied it shut. I checked the shower. Razor, shampoo. Into the bag. I wanted a clean break. No excuses to come back. No, I forgot my charger texts 3 days from now. No, I left my winter coat emails. I was thorough. I checked under the bed. I checked the nightstand drawers. 10 minutes later, the boxes were full. I taped them shut. I carried the boxes to the elevator. She followed, dragging her duffel bag, still crying, still trying to negotiate. Noah, please. Let's just talk in the morning. I'm tired. You're drunk. We can fix this. I'm not drunk. I've never been more sober. And you can't fix a foundational crack with paint. I hit the button for the lobby. We rode down in silence. She leaned against the mirrored wall, looking at me, waiting for me to crack, waiting for me to say, okay, fine, come back upstairs. She thought if she looked pathetic enough, my conditioning as a protector would kick in. It didn't. Protection is earned. I walked her to the curb. I had already called the second Uber while I was taping the boxes. It was waiting. I put the boxes in the trunk. I put the bags in the trunk. I prepaid for 2 nights at the Marriott downtown, I said. I'll email you the confirmation number. That gives you 48 hours to find a living arrangement. I'll Venmo you $1,000 for incidental expenses. Consider it a severance package. I can't believe you're doing this. Believe it. It's happening. I love you, she said. It was a Hail Mary pass. No, you don't, I said. You love the attention I give you, and you love the lifestyle I provide. You love the validation of being with me. If you loved me, you wouldn't leverage my dignity for your entertainment. You wouldn't try to make me look small to make yourself feel big. I closed the trunk. I opened the back door of the car for her. She stood there on the sidewalk. It was cold. She was shivering. Get in the car, Chloe. She got in. She slammed the door. I tapped the roof of the car, the universal signal to the driver. Go. I watched the taillights disappear around the corner. I went back inside. I nodded to the doorman, a guy named Hector. He knows not to ask questions. He's seen me bring deals home, and he's seen me take trash out. He knew which one this was. When I got back to the apartment, I didn't sit down. I had work to do. First thing, I stripped the bed. Sheets, pillowcases, duvet cover. All of it. I put in the wash immediately. High heat. I didn't want the smell of her perfume in the room. Scent is a powerful trigger. It bypasses logic and hits the memory centers. I wanted it neutralized. Then I picked up my phone and called the emergency locksmith service. I have an account with a 24-hour vendor for the business. This is Noah. I need a residential rekey. Immediate dispatch. It's 2 a.m., sir. The surcharge is substantial. I didn't ask about the price. I asked for the dispatch. How long? 30 minutes. Send them. While I waited, I went through the apartment again. I did a forensic sweep. I found a bobby pin on the rug. Trash. I found a half-read magazine on the coffee table. Trash. I found a pair of earrings she left on the dining table. Cheap ones, not the diamonds I bought her. I put them in an envelope, wrote her name on it, and put it in the outgoing mail pile. I wasn't stealing her property, but I was removing it from my sector. The locksmith arrived at 2:40 a.m. He was a professional. Thick neck, tool belt, tired eyes. He didn't ask why. He just looked at the deadbolt. Standard schlag, he said. You want to upgrade while I'm at it? Put in the Medico, I said. High security. Restricted keyway. Cannot be duplicated without a card. And rekey the service entrance too. You got it. It took him an hour. The sound of the drill was comforting. It was the sound of a perimeter being reestablished. It was the sound of my life returning to my control. By 4 a.m., the locks were changed. I had the new keys in my hand. They felt heavy, solid. I tipped the guy $100 for the speed. I went back to the bedroom. The sheets were done. I made the bed with fresh linens, crisp, white, hotel quality. I poured a final drink, water this time. Hydration is important for recovery. I sat on my couch in the dark. The silence in the apartment wasn't lonely. It was heavy, sure, but it was clean. It was the silence of a problem solved. It was the silence of a liability removed from the balance sheet. I felt lighter. I slept for 4 hours. Deep, dreamless sleep. She tried to come back the next day. Around noon, I was in the kitchen making coffee. I was reviewing the Sterling contract notes. I heard the key scratch in the lock. It jammed. It didn't turn. She knocked. Then she rang the doorbell. I didn't answer. I picked up my iPad and opened the security camera app. I have a camera in the hallway. I watch her on the screen. She looked terrible. Puffy eyes, same clothes as the night before. She looked confused. She tried the key again. She jiggled the handle, aggressively this time. She couldn't process that the access she had taken for granted was physically revoked. She pulled out her phone and called me. My phone didn't ring. I had blocked the number at 4:15 a.m., right after the locksmith left. She called again. She texted. I saw the notifications pop up on my iPad because I hadn't blocked her on iMessage there yet. Noah, please. I'm sorry. Let me in. We can talk. You're overreacting. I watched her stand there for 10 minutes. She leaned her forehead against the door. She was realizing that the consequences were real. She was realizing that the game had rules she didn't understand, and she had broken the only rule that mattered. Loyalty is absolute. Eventually, she slumped. She kicked the door once, weakly, and walked away toward the elevator. I didn't feel guilt. I didn't feel sadness. I felt the satisfaction of a secure perimeter. The lesson is simple, and it applies to business just as much as it applies to women. You teach people how to treat you. If you tolerate the disrespect, you own the disrespect. If you negotiate with someone who is holding your dignity hostage, you've already lost. I don't tolerate it. I don't negotiate with terrorists, and I don't negotiate with partners who use jealousy as a currency. I drank my coffee. It was good coffee. Now, are we going to order food, or do I need to explain the details of the Sterling deal to you? Because that's where my focus is. That's where the value is. Everything else is just noise. Thank you for listening. That brings today's story to a close. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing. See you next time.